Hey, you gorgeous souls, I'm Elena, and I'm about to tell you the most satisfying family revenge story that turned my stepfamily's cruel humiliation at my father's funeral into the moment they realized they'd lost everything, and how my dad's final gift to me destroyed their greed while making me a millionaire. When my stepmother Patricia and her spoiled children publicly mocked me at my father's funeral, calling me a bastard daughter who finally came crawling back for money, they had no idea that my dad had secretly changed his will just weeks before his death. While they expected to inherit his $8 million estate and luxury businesses, I inherited everything except $1,000 each, money my dad specifically designated for them to by some humility. But here's where this funeral inheritance revenge gets absolutely insane. My father hadn't just left me his fortune. He'd included a video message that played after the will reading, exposing Patricia's affair with his business partner, her theft from his companies, and her plan to put him in a nursing home to steal his money. By the time the lawyer finished reading, Patricia and her children lost their home, their lifestyle, and their freedom when police arrested Patricia for elder abuse and financial fraud. This story has everything: stepfamily cruelty, funeral humiliation, secret inheritance, affair exposure, financial fraud, and the kind of family justice that turned my dad's death into the most expensive mistake my stepfamily ever made. Y'all ready for this inheritance disaster? Because this is how one funeral humiliation became the moment my stepfamily lost everything they thought they'd stolen. Beautiful souls, let me take you back to 15 years ago when my father remarried and I became the unwanted stepdaughter in a family that would spend the next decade and a half making my life miserable while plotting to steal my inheritance. I'm Elena Rodriguez, 28 years old, and I work as a pediatric nurse in Denver, Colorado. I've always been independent and hardworking, largely because I learned early that I couldn't depend on my family for support or love. My father, Marcus Rodriguez, 67, was a successful business owner who built a multi-million-dollar construction company through 40 years of hard work and smart investments. When I was 13, my mother died in a car accident, leaving my father devastated and me struggling to cope with both grief and the responsibility of taking care of him. Elena is such a strong girl, my father would tell people during that difficult time. She's been my rock through the worst period of my life. 2 years after my mother's death, my father met Patricia Walsh, 52, a recently divorced woman with 2 children, Brandon, 25, and Sophia, 23. Patricia initially seemed supportive and caring, presenting herself as someone who understood grief and wanted to help our family heal. Elena needs a mother figure, Patricia would tell my father. I want to help you build a loving family for all of us. My father, still grieving and lonely, was grateful for Patricia's attention and convinced that remarrying would provide stability for both of us. Patricia and her children will complete our family, my father told me before the wedding. You'll have siblings and a mother who cares about you. From the moment Patricia and her children moved into our house, it became clear that they viewed me as an obstacle to their inheritance rather than family. Patricia immediately began excluding me from family decisions and activities while lavishing attention on her biological children. Brandon and Sophia are going through such a difficult adjustment, Patricia would tell my father when I complained about being excluded. We need to focus on helping them feel welcome in their new home. Brandon and Sophia, who were older than me, treated me with open contempt and cruelty, calling me names and making it clear that they considered me unwelcome in what they now viewed as their house. You're not our real sister, Sophia would tell me regularly. When Dad dies, this house will belong to our real family, not some bastard daughter. Patricia is our mom's replacement for your dead mother, Brandon would say cruelly. You're just leftover baggage that Dad feels guilty about. Patricia would pretend to discipline her children for these comments when my father was present, but she encouraged their behavior when he wasn't around. Elena needs to understand her place in this family, I overheard Patricia telling Brandon and Sophia. "She's not your equal, and she shouldn't expect to be treated like one." My father, desperate to make his new marriage work and trusting Patricia's explanations about adjustment difficulties, often sided with the stepfamily when conflicts arose. As the years passed, Patricia became increasingly interested in my father's business and financial affairs, gradually taking control of household finances and business decisions. "Marcus works so hard," Patricia would tell people. "I handle all the financial details so he can focus on growing the business." Patricia began making expensive purchases and lifestyle changes that dramatically increased our family's spending, while claiming it was necessary for family unity. "The children need to feel like they belong in this family," Patricia would justify expensive vacations and purchases. "We can't treat them like second-class citizens in their own home." Brandon and Sophia were given everything they wanted: expensive cars, designer clothes, private school tuition, and lavish birthday parties, while I was expected to earn money for my own expenses. "Elena is older and more independent," Patricia would tell my father when I asked why I was treated differently. "She doesn't need the same level of support as younger children who are still adjusting." Patricia also began discussing inheritance and estate planning with my father, always emphasizing the needs of the whole family rather than acknowledging my position as his biological daughter. "We need to make sure all the children are provided for equally," Patricia would say, despite treating me as less than equal in every other aspect of family life. I began to suspect that Patricia was more interested in my father's money than in our family, but I was too young and powerless to challenge her influence. Throughout high school and college, Patricia systematically excluded me from family events and decisions while strengthening her children's position in my father's life. "Elena is so busy with her nursing studies," Patricia would tell my father, when I wasn't invited to family dinners or celebrations. "She probably prefers to focus on her career rather than family obligations." Patricia scheduled family vacations and activities during times when I had work or school commitments, then told my father that I was choosing not to participate. "Elena doesn't seem interested in spending time with the family," Patricia would report to my father. "Maybe she's outgrowing her need for family connection." Brandon and Sophia were encouraged to view me as an outsider who didn't belong in their family unit with Patricia and my father. "Elena lives in her own world," they would tell my father. "She doesn't really care about family the way we do." By the time I graduated from nursing school and started my career, I had been almost completely excluded from my father's daily life and family decisions. "Elena is independent and successful," Patricia would tell my father. "She doesn't need family support the way Brandon and Sophia do." The isolation was painful, but I focused on building my career and my own life rather than fighting for acceptance in a family that didn't want me. "I'll prove that I don't need their approval or their money," I decided while working extra shifts to pay for my apartment and living expenses. My relationship with my father became distant and strained, largely due to Patricia's manipulation and my own hurt over his failure to protect me from her family's cruelty. Gorgeous souls, when my father was diagnosed with terminal cancer, Patricia's true colors emerged as she accelerated her plans to steal his inheritance while preventing me from spending his final months with him. 8 months ago, my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and given 6 months to live, news that should have brought our family together but instead became Patricia's opportunity for final manipulation. "Marcus needs peace and quiet during his treatment," Patricia announced to me when I tried to visit more frequently. "Too many visitors will stress him and make his condition worse." Patricia immediately took control of my father's medical care, accompanying him to all appointments and controlling information about his condition and prognosis. "I'll keep you updated about your father's condition," Patricia told me. but the doctors say limiting visitors to immediate family is best for his recovery. Immediate family apparently meant Patricia, Brandon, and Sophia, while I was relegated to occasional phone calls and brief visits when Patricia deemed them appropriate. "Elena, your father is sleeping," Patricia would tell me when I called. "He's having a difficult day, and visitors would be too much for him right now." When I did manage to visit, Patricia ensured that Brandon and Sophia were always present, making private conversations with my father nearly impossible. "Dad needs family support," Sophia would say when I tried to speak with my father alone. "We're all here together to help him through this difficult time." Patricia also began controlling my father's business affairs, claiming that his illness made it necessary for her to manage financial decisions. "Marcus can't handle the stress of business decisions right now," Patricia would tell his business partners. "I'm managing his affairs until he recovers." As my father's condition worsened, Patricia began discussing the possibility of moving him to a specialized care facility, despite his expressed wishes to remain at home. "Marcus needs professional medical care that we can't provide at home," Patricia would tell visitors. "A nursing facility would be better for his health and recovery." "I don't want to go to a nursing home," my father told me during one of my rare private moments with him. "I want to stay in my own house with my family around me." "Dad, you should tell Patricia how you feel," I encouraged him. "This is your decision to make, not hers." "Patricia knows what's best for medical decisions," my father replied weakly. "She's been handling everything so well, and I don't want to burden her with arguments." Patricia had convinced my father that disagreeing with her medical decisions would be selfish and ungrateful, leaving him feeling guilty about expressing his own preferences. "Elena doesn't understand the complexity of your medical needs," Patricia would tell my father when I advocated for his wishes. "She's not qualified to make healthcare decisions." Patricia's plan to move my father to a nursing home would have given her complete control over his affairs while isolating him from anyone who might question her financial management. "Once Dad is in a facility, Patricia will have total access to his accounts and business," I realized with growing alarm. Sensing that my father's time was running out and desperate to rebuild our relationship, I began making more aggressive attempts to spend time with him despite Patricia's interference. "Dad, I love you and I want to be here for you," I told him during a visit when Patricia was briefly absent. "I feel like I'm losing you before you're even gone." "Elena, I love you too," my father said with tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry if I haven't been the father you deserved. Patricia and her children needed so much help adjusting, and I may have neglected your needs." "It's not too late to spend time together," I encouraged him. "I want to take care of you and be part of your life during this time." "Patricia has been handling everything so well," my father said uncertainly. "She says too many visitors and changes in routine could make my condition worse." During one of our final private conversations, my father made comments that suggested he was reconsidering his estate planning and Patricia's role in his affairs. "Elena, you've always been independent and strong," my father told me. "I'm proud of the woman you've become, even if I haven't shown it properly." "I've been thinking about a lot of things lately," he continued. "About family, about what matters, and about making sure the right people are taken care of." "Dad, whatever you're thinking about, I just want you to know that I love you," I told him. "I don't need anything from you except the chance to be your daughter." "You've always been my daughter," my father said firmly. "And I'm going to make sure you know how much that means to me." During my father's final weeks, Patricia became increasingly aggressive about controlling his environment and preventing me from having meaningful contact with him. "Marcus is too weak for emotional conversations," Patricia would tell me when I tried to visit. "Talking about serious topics upsets him and makes his pain worse." Patricia also began making comments about inheritance and family obligations that suggested she was pressuring my father about his will during his most vulnerable moments. Marcus knows how much Brandon and Sophia need security for their futures, Patricia would say in front of my father. They've sacrificed so much to take care of him during his illness. Elena has her nursing career and doesn't need family support. The way younger children do, Patricia would continue her manipulation. She'll be fine on her own. When my father passed away peacefully at home, Patricia immediately took control of funeral arrangements and estate matters, excluding me from most decisions. Marcus left specific instructions about his funeral arrangements, Patricia claimed. He wanted a simple service focused on celebrating his life with his immediate family. I'll handle all the legal and financial matters, Patricia told me dismissively. You should focus on grieving and let the family take care of practical arrangements. Patricia's behavior during my father's final weeks had made it clear that she viewed his death as the culmination of her 15-year plan to steal his wealth and exclude me from the family. Patricia thinks she's won, I realized while grieving my father's death. She has no idea what Dad might have been planning during those final conversations. Beautiful souls, my father's funeral became the stage for the most cruel and public humiliation when Patricia and her children used my grief as an opportunity to cement their victory and destroy any remaining connection I had to my family. Patricia planned my father's funeral as if I were a distant relative rather than his biological daughter, systematically excluding me from arrangements and meaningful participation. The immediate family will sit in the front row, Patricia announced to the funeral director while indicating herself, Brandon, and Sophia. Elena can sit with other relatives and friends. I'm Marcus's daughter, I told the funeral director. Privately. I should be included in the family seating arrangements. Mrs. Rodriguez has been handling all the arrangements, the funeral director replied uncomfortably. She indicated that the family seating was already determined. Patricia had also excluded me from selecting flowers, music, and speakers for the service, making all decisions as if she were my father's only family member. Marcus and I discussed his funeral preferences extensively, Patricia claimed. He wanted the service to reflect our family's values and relationships. The funeral program listed Patricia as beloved wife, Brandon and Sophia as cherished stepchildren, and me as simply Elena Rodriguez without any family designation. This funeral program doesn't even acknowledge that I'm his daughter, I noticed with hurt and anger. Patricia had invited her extended family and friends while limiting my ability to invite people who had known my father before his remarriage. The service needs to maintain an appropriate tone, Patricia told me when I asked about inviting my father's old friends. Too many people would make the service chaotic and disrespectful. During the funeral service, Patricia and her children made several public comments that were clearly designed to humiliate me and establish their dominance in front of the congregation. Marcus was so grateful to have found a loving family in his later years, Patricia said during her eulogy. Brandon and Sophia brought joy and purpose to his life when he needed it most. Dad always said that family isn't just about blood, it's about who shows up and who cares, Sophia added while looking directly at me. He was lucky to have people who truly put family first. Brandon's speech was even more pointed and cruel, referencing my absence during my father's illness without mentioning Patricia's role in excluding me. Dad needed people he could count on during his final months, Brandon said. He was surrounded by family members who made sacrifices to be there for him every day. The comments were designed to suggest that I had been absent by choice rather than excluded by Patricia's manipulation. Several congregation members who knew our family history looked uncomfortable during these speeches, but no one challenged the narrative Patricia and her children were creating. Elena seems to be getting blamed for not being present, I heard whispered comments. But I thought Patricia controlled access to Marcus during his illness. The public humiliation continued during the reception, where Patricia and her children made additional comments about family loyalty and inheritance expectations. During the funeral reception, Patricia and her children began openly discussing their inheritance expectations, making it clear that they viewed my father's death as their financial victory. Marcus was always so generous with the family, Patricia said loudly enough for multiple people to hear. He made sure that everyone who truly cared for him would be taken care of. Dad always said that inheritance should reflect family contribution and loyalty, Sophia added while smirking at me. People who show up get rewarded, and people who don't shouldn't expect anything. Brandon was even more direct about their inheritance expectations and their plan to exclude me from my father's wealth. The business and the house will stay in the family, Brandon announced to relatives. Dad built everything for people who actually care about family, not for people who only show up when someone dies. Elena can't expect to inherit anything after being absent for years, Sophia said cruelly. She made her choice to prioritize her career over family, and now she has to live with the consequences. Patricia nodded approvingly at her children's comments, clearly proud of their cruelty and confident about their inheritance expectations. Marcus always told me that Elena was independent and didn't need family support, Patricia said with false sympathy. She'll be fine on her own, just like she's always preferred. The inheritance discussion became increasingly detailed and presumptuous, with Patricia and her children discussing their plans for my father's business and property. We'll keep the construction company running, Brandon said confidently. Dad would want the business to stay in the family and continue providing for the people who cared about him. The funeral humiliation reached its peak when Patricia and her children directly confronted me about my presence at the service and my inheritance expectations. Elena, it's interesting that you're suddenly so concerned about family, Patricia said with vicious sweetness. You weren't particularly interested in spending time with your father when he was alive. I tried to visit Dad regularly, I defended myself. You made it difficult for me to spend time with him during his illness. That's not how he saw it, Sophia interrupted cruelly. Dad knew who really cared about him and who was just going through the motions. You think you can show up to his funeral and expect to inherit something? Brandon added with contempt. Family loyalty isn't something you can fake at the last minute. The confrontation was loud enough that other funeral attendees could hear, creating a public spectacle of family dysfunction at my father's memorial service. Elena always thought she was better than the rest of us, Patricia said to the gathering crowd. Too good to spend time with her dying father, but not too good to show up when there might be money involved. Dad saw through her fake concern, Sophia added. He knew the difference between real family and opportunistic relatives. The humiliation was devastating, especially because I was grieving my father's death while being publicly attacked by people who had systematically excluded me from his life. You people are disgusting, I finally said through tears. You isolated him from me during his final months, and now you're using his funeral to attack me. Elena, don't make a scene at your father's funeral, Patricia said with fake concern. This isn't the time or place for your emotional outbursts. The cruel irony was that Patricia and her children were creating the scene while accusing me of being inappropriate. I loved my father more than any of you ever will, I said firmly. And whatever he decided about inheritance, at least I know my relationship with him wasn't based on greed. We'll see about that tomorrow at the will reading, Brandon said with confident cruelty. Dad made his feelings about family loyalty very clear in his final wishes. Patricia smiled with satisfaction as I left the reception, clearly believing that she had won both the inheritance and the final battle for my father's legacy. Gorgeous souls, the will reading became the most spectacular reversal of fortune when my father's final wishes destroyed Patricia's greed and revealed that he'd seen through her manipulation all along, leaving me everything while exposing her crimes to everyone who mattered. The will reading was held at my father's attorney's office with Patricia, Brandon, Sophia, and myself present, along with my father's business partner and accountant as witnesses. Patricia and her children arrived dressed expensively and radiating confidence, clearly expecting to receive the majority of my father's $8 million estate. "I'm sure Marcus left clear instructions about his wishes," Patricia told the attorney. "He was very thoughtful about providing for his family's future security." Brandon and Sophia whispered excitedly about their inheritance expectations, discussing their plans for the money and property with obvious greed. "I can't wait to renovate the house," Sophia said quietly. "Dad always said it would be ours someday." "The business is going to be amazing to run," Brandon added. "Dad trained us to take over his construction company." I sat quietly, still grieving and emotionally exhausted from the previous day's funeral humiliation, expecting to receive little or nothing from my father's estate. "Elena, I'm sure your father made appropriate provisions for everyone," the attorney said kindly, though his expression suggested he knew something the others didn't. "Let's begin with the reading of Marcus Rodriguez's last will and testament," the attorney announced formally. Patricia smiled with anticipated victory, clearly expecting to hear her name associated with the majority of my father's wealth and property. The attorney began reading my father's will, which had been updated just 3 weeks before his death, during the period when Patricia had been limiting my access to him. "I, Marcus Rodriguez, being of sound mind and body, hereby leave my entire estate, including all properties, businesses, and financial assets, to my beloved daughter Elena Rodriguez," the attorney read clearly. Patricia's face went white with shock as she processed that I had inherited everything she'd been expecting to receive. "There must be some mistake," Patricia said desperately. "Marcus discussed his inheritance plans with me extensively. He was providing for all his children equally. The will is very clear," the attorney continued. "Elena Rodriguez inherits the family home, Rodriguez Construction Company, all investment accounts, and all personal property." Brandon and Sophia sat in stunned silence as they realized their inheritance expectations had been completely wrong. "What about us?" Sophia asked in a panic. "Dad promised that we would be taken care of. We're his family too." "The will does include provisions for Patricia, Brandon, and Sophia," the attorney confirmed while continuing to read. "To Patricia Walsh Rodriguez, I leave the sum of $1,000, specifically designated for the purchase of humility, which she has lacked throughout our marriage," the attorney read as Patricia gasped in shock. "To Brandon Walsh and Sophia Walsh, I leave $1,000 each, with the hope that they will learn the difference between family loyalty and financial opportunism," the attorney continued. The minimal inheritance amounts were clearly intended as insults rather than genuine provisions, demonstrating my father's true feelings about Patricia and her children. After reading the will, the attorney announced that my father had included a video message to be played for all beneficiaries. Marcus Rodriguez recorded this message 2 weeks before his death, the attorney explained while setting up the video equipment. My father's voice and image filled the room as he began explaining his inheritance decisions and revealing his knowledge of Patricia's true character. "If you're watching this, I'm gone," and Patricia is probably shocked that she didn't inherit my money, my father said from the video with surprising strength and clarity. "Patricia, I've known about your affair with my business partner David Shun for over a year," my father revealed as Patricia's face showed absolute horror. "I also know about the $200,000 you've stolen from my business accounts over the past 3 years to fund your lifestyle and your children's expensive habits, my father continued. You thought I was too sick and trusting to notice, but I've been documenting your theft and planning this moment for months, my father's message explained. The video included detailed evidence of Patricia's financial crimes and her plan to place my father in a nursing home to gain complete control of his assets. Patricia convinced my doctors to recommend nursing home care, not for my health, but so she could isolate me and steal my remaining assets, my father revealed. Elena, you are my true daughter and the only person who loved me without wanting my money, my father said directly to me through the video. Asterisk. My father's video message included comprehensive evidence of Patricia's crimes that he had been secretly gathering during his final months. I've been working with investigators to document Patricia's theft and prepare criminal charges, my father's message continued. The evidence has been provided to federal authorities, and Patricia will be arrested for elder abuse, financial fraud, and embezzlement, my father announced. As if on cue, federal agents entered the attorney's office to arrest Patricia while the video message was still playing. Patricia Walsh Rodriguez, you're under arrest for elder abuse, embezzlement, and fraud against a disabled person, the FBI agent announced. Patricia was handcuffed in front of everyone while my father's video message continued explaining her crimes and his decision to leave her nothing. Brandon and Sophia, you enabled your mother's abuse and theft, my father's message addressed them directly. You isolated me from Elena and participated in Patricia's plan to steal my money. Your inheritance of $1,000 each reflects exactly what your fake family loyalty is worth, my father said with devastating finality. The arrest and video message created absolute chaos in the attorney's office, with Patricia crying and screaming while Brandon and Sophia sat in shock. This can't be happening, Sophia said through tears. Dad loved us. We were his real family. He was manipulated by Elena, Brandon claimed desperately. She poisoned him against us during his illness. My father's final message included a personal section directed specifically to me, restoring our relationship and acknowledging his failures as a father. Elena, I failed you as a father by allowing Patricia and her children to exclude and mistreat you, my father said with obvious emotion. I was lonely after your mother died, and I let Patricia manipulate me into believing her lies about family unity and your supposed lack of interest in our relationship, he continued. The truth is that you never stopped being my daughter, and I never stopped loving you, even when I was too weak and confused to show it properly, my father's message concluded. This inheritance is not just money, it's my apology and my promise that your mother's memory and our family legacy will be protected by someone who truly deserves it, he said finally. The emotional impact of my father's message was overwhelming, providing closure and vindication after years of exclusion and abuse. Dad knew the truth all along, I realized through tears. He was protecting me and planning this justice during his final weeks. The inheritance included not just money and property, but also my father's business records documenting Patricia's crimes and his investigation into her activities. Your father wanted you to have everything necessary to pursue additional legal action against Patricia and recover any remaining stolen assets, the attorney explained. Patricia was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for elder abuse and embezzlement, losing any claim to my father's estate. The defendant systematically abused and stole from a dying man while isolating him from his biological daughter, the judge said during sentencing. Brandon and Sophia were forced to move out of the family home and find their own housing and employment, having lost the lifestyle Patricia had funded through theft. We can't afford rent without Dad's money, they complained to relatives who now knew the truth about their greed and abuse. I inherited my father's $8 million estate, including his successful construction company, our family home, and substantial investment accounts. Elena Rodriguez was the victim of systematic family abuse and deserves complete restitution, the probate court ruled. The inheritance also included my father's personal letters explaining his love for me and his regret about allowing Patricia's manipulation to damage our relationship. Elena, you were always my pride and joy, one letter read. I hope this inheritance proves that blood and love matter more than manipulation and greed. Today, I run my father's construction company successfully while continuing my nursing career, using both to honor his memory and help others. Dad's final gift wasn't just money, it was justice and the restoration of our family bond. I reflect on his legacy. That's how you handle a stepfamily who humiliates you at your father's funeral while expecting to steal his inheritance, y'all. You trust that love and truth are stronger than greed and manipulation. Sometimes the best revenge comes from a parent's love reaching beyond death to protect their child and punish those who abused their trust. Patricia thought she could steal my father's money and destroy our relationship, but his final act proved that blood and genuine love triumph over greed. Never let stepfamily abuse convince you that you don't deserve your parents' love, gorgeous souls. Truth and justice have a way of emerging, even from the grave. My father's will reading turned the worst day of my life into the moment I got my family back and my stepfamily lost everything they'd stolen. And gorgeous souls, if this story resonated with you, if you've faced stepfamily abuse or inheritance manipulation, I want you to know that justice and love can triumph over greed and cruelty. If you want to hear more stories like this, more tales of inheritance justice, family revenge, and love conquering manipulation, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. Your support means everything to me, beautiful souls. Every like, every comment, every share helps me reach more people who need to hear these stories. So smash that subscribe button, leave me a comment about your own experiences with family drama and inheritance justice, and let's build a community of people who believe that love and truth are stronger than greed and manipulation. I'll see you gorgeous souls in the next story, and remember, never let family abuse convince you that you don't matter. Trust in the power of genuine love, and believe that justice will prevail.